Let me invite on stage Emma Schofield, who is the Global Food Science Analyst at Mintel. Emma.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen to my presentation this afternoon. I'm Emma Schofield, Global Food Science Analyst at Mintel. My presentation is on clean label and nutritionally conscious formulations, which there's already been a lot of discussion on. And yes, I'll just wait for the clicker. Thanks very much. So a bit about Mintel, in case you haven't heard of us already. So Mintel is a global company. We do research in food and drink ingredients and many other related areas like nutrition, health and wellness. And we have offices across the globe. Some of them are marked on the screen with the dots. And in addition to that, we do consumer research and we collect product information from 62 countries across the globe, just there on the screen, our GNPD network. And some of our offices, so I work in our London office, but we also have Chicago, Sao Paulo, Shanghai, Singapore, Sydney, and a few others. And here are some of our products. So we do consumer research through our reports and through our consumer data charts in several countries, from many European countries, the UK, America and China as examples. And then we also have our GNPD product database, which allows us to very objectively track trends in ingredients, in nutritional data and other product information such as health claims on pack. So my presentation has three parts today. So the first part touches on the importance of clean label and naturalness. So taking a snapshot of our consumer research, showing the type of thing that we do for our clients as projects. And then the second part is on some clean label ingredient choices in food and drink. So this is taken from trends in from our GNPD database. And then a final section on nutritionally conscious formulations in food and drink and how nutrition is strongly linked with a clean label. So first up, the importance of clean label and naturalness. So brands are under more pressure than ever before to clean up their ingredients lists. And many other aspects of their products, which is an opportunity for food ingredient producers, but can also be a bit of a risk. So some consumer attitudes towards naturalness. So naturalness is very important to consumers. This is some of our data from some European countries. So you can see that almost half of Italian consumers, 46%, say that they avoid food and drink products that contain artificial preservatives and additives. And consumers are very interested in the details of what goes into their food and drink. So 38% of Spanish consumers and 36% of French consumers, as examples, say that they regularly check the ingredients lists on pack. And there are many different elements of naturalness that interest consumers. So genetic modification, that is always a hot topic. And you can see that almost half, so 4 out of 10 German and Italian consumers say they would never buy food and drink that's been genetically modified. And we see different naturalness claims are more and less relevant in certain countries across the globe. So over to the US. So we asked US consumers in 2017, which of the following food claims are most important to you? And you can see that across all different age groups, so age 18 through to age 55 plus, around 3 in 10, 30%, not 3 in 10, of consumers say that free from artificial flavors, free from artificial colors, and preservative-free claims are important to them on food and drink. So there's a strong demand for naturalness in food and drink, and particularly in added ingredients like flavors, colors, and preservatives. And in some parts of the world, naturalness is more important to consumers, or at least more interesting to consumers than nutritional claims. So in China, as an example, a high percentage of consumers say they seek information on whether a product contains additives and preservatives than the percentage of Chinese consumers who seek information on fat and sugar content. So half of Chinese consumers say that they always look at whether or not a product contains additives and preservatives. compared with 4 in 10 who say they look for the sugar content. And consumers' definition of clean label is evolving. So the fundamentals of clean label are about removing artificial ingredients, particularly preservatives and colours as an example. But we're starting to see many other ingredients being sort of pulled into the spotlight. So the first one on the left of the screen is about free-from diets. So someone mentioned earlier in the session, consumers are starting to avoid food allergens, and ingredients linked with food intolerances as part of a lifestyle trend, not really just because they have a medically diagnosed allergy or intolerance to an ingredient. So in the UK, 17% of UK consumers say they avoid soy and 13% say they avoid gluten, as an example. And we're starting to see free-from diet trends become part of the clean label trend. Other ingredients, so MSG, 51% of Chinese consumers say they're interested in dishes that use natural ingredients to replace salt or MSG. And carrageenan, which I've got a couple of slides on later in the presentation. So in the US, carrageenan has had a bit of a bad reputation in the media. 18% of consumers aged 35 to 44 say they avoid carrageenan. And food and drink brands are starting to bring naturalness to centre stage. So this is Unilever's Knorr brand, and you can see they have really drawn naturalness up to the front of the product with their 100% naturals claims. And then they're using very bold imagery, highlighting the sort of real unprocessed ingredients that go into their products. And different types of natural claims are prevalent across the globe. So this is from our GMPD database that allows us to track the different types of natural claims that we see on pack. And you can see in Europe, the percentage of food and drink launches between September 2013 and August 2018 that feature a no additives and preservatives claim. 15% of all food and drink launches. 13% of all food and drink launches in Europe feature an organic claim. And you see different trends across the globe. So in the Middle East and Africa, which is on the left of the screen, 3% of product launches feature an organic claim and 3% feature a GMO-free claim. And these are some examples of what our GMPD database can do for our clients. It's one example of many of the different types of analysis we can do. And specifically in the Middle East, so we track 62 countries across the globe on our system. So taking the UAE, so the percentage of food and drink products that feature no additive and preservative claim over the past 5 years rolling is 17%. And 3% feature a GMO-free claim, and 2% feature an organic claim. So different types of natural claims are more or less interesting to consumers, or at least more prevalent in food and drink, depending on the country. And we're starting to see clean label evolve to be more than just removing artificial ingredients. We're starting to see a trend towards short and simple ingredients lists. So consumers like familiarity, and they like to see ingredients lists that contain ingredients that they're familiar with, which is an opportunity for producers to explain ingredients and additives to consumers on pack or through online or other means, taking some of the mystery away from ingredients that they may not be familiar with. So 77% of US consumers say that processed foods have too many unnecessary ingredients. And 31% of Canadian consumers say they're interested in sauces and marinades with a minimal number of ingredients. And consumers are often a bit skeptical towards processed foods. So 71% of US consumers agree there are probably more harmful ingredients in foods than manufacturers are telling us. And we're starting to see the food industry react to this trend towards short and simple ingredients lists by calling out these types of messages on screen. So on the left of the screen, the product says contains just 5 ingredients. And then Innocent, they're quite a big brand in the UK. They very prominently promote that their drinks range has just 3 ingredients in. And then a product from the US on the left again, made with only 5 ingredients. So this trend is obviously a bit of a risk to ingredient producers, but it does highlight the need to educate and give consumers a transparency over food ingredients that they seek. On to a second part of the presentation, which highlights 3 different ingredient groups, so food colors, preservatives, and thickeners. So some trends we're seeing in these categories. This information is from our GMPD database. So colouring foods are growing in food and drink launches. So certainly in the EU, certain colours have had a very bad reputation. And if you use them, you have to put some health warnings on pack for some colours. So this shows the percentage of sugar and gum confectionery launches in Europe that contain select types of colouring ingredient. So you can see colouring foods are rising. So 18% of sugar and gum confectionery launches contained a colouring food in the 12 months ending September 2014. And that rose to 26% in the 12 months ending September 2018. By contrast, natural colours slightly declined. So in Europe, we are seeing a trend not just towards removing artificial ingredients, but also in some cases in removing added ingredients altogether. And in terms of colouring food ingredients, so they're not always added for colour, so some of them have other functions in food and drink. But this is taken again from our GMPD database. This is a type of ingredient analysis we can do. So some of the highest colouring food ingredients by share in sugar and gum confectionery launches: safflower concentrate, carrot concentrate, spirulina and radish concentrate. And we can do this type of analysis for all of the ingredient groups that we track. And you can see there are opportunities for more natural colours, food and drink formulations with more natural colours in the Middle East. So this chart shows the different yellow and orange colours that are used in the Middle East and Africa as a region versus in Europe, and it's in sugar and gum confectionery launches. So you can see the highest percentage of yellow and orange colours used in Europe in sugar and gum confectionery is curcumin, followed by paprika, followed by beta-carotene, whereas in the Middle East and Africa, the most commonly used yellow and orange colour is sunset yellow, followed by tartrazine. So some opportunities to move food colours to a more natural positioning in the Middle East and Africa could deliver some good selling points. And here are some examples of colouring foods, how they're used in different applications. So this product here on the left of the screen from the UAE contains black carrot, red radish and safflower. And then we've got on the other side of the screen Smarties. Nestle Smarties product. They say contains no artificial colours, flavours or preservatives. That was also launched here, and that contains hibiscus and spirulina concentrates. So really trying to improve the natural clean label image of their confectionery ranges. And then on to antioxidants. So sauces is a common category where we find consumers are interested in clean label ingredients. Another example of what we can do on GMPD. So this shows the percentage of mayonnaise sauce products that contain select antioxidants preventing fat rancidity. And you can see that Europe, mayonnaise launches in Europe actually, of all regions, contain the fewest number of antioxidant ingredients. So this is a percentage of product launches that contain these ingredients. It's not the weight or the volume within. So you can see 30%, so just under 29% of mayonnaise launches in Europe contain EDTA, which is lower than all other regions. And the Middle East and Africa, alongside Latin America, are the regions that contain the most number of product launches with antioxidants in mayonnaise. And one trend we're seeing in Europe as an alternative to EDTA in mayonnaise is rosemary extract, appearing in organic mayonnaise launches, possibly also in premium launches. And here are some examples of products that use rosemary extract as an antioxidant to replace conventional or artificial antioxidants like EDTA. So some trends that we're seeing in Europe, and one product there from Australia as well. And on to thickeners. So thickeners are another category, the various different types here: gums, modified starches, carrageenan, which I touched on previously. So in Europe and also in North America, we're seeing a bit of a downward trend in the percentage of food and drink launches that contain these ingredients. So, for example, the number of product launches, food and drink product launches in North America, which on GDP is Canada and the US, that contain carrageenan, dropped from 7 to 5% over the last 5 years. And we're seeing a number of different approaches taken to thickeners in the food industry. So brands are promoting that they're free from certain thickeners. So take the US, the Suja product here, free from carrageenan, and they use gel and gum as an alternative. Then we have Danone and their Activia drink. No gelatin or modified starch. That's a Canadian product launch. And they use cornstarch, so it's a non-modified alternative. And then this product here, launched in the UAE, flags up that they have nothing added, including thickeners. So the ingredients list is just 100% apple juice from concentrate. So it really highlights the need to educate consumers on why these types of ingredients are safe, to kind of halt these types of nothing added type claims. And the last part of the presentation, so nutritionally conscious formulations in food and drink, focusing on sweetening solutions and also the natural nutrition trend. So there's opportunities to help consumers to align to national dietary guidelines. So across the globe, we're seeing the rise of certain dietary-related diseases. So obesity would be one example, which has made many headlines recently, particularly the rise of obesity and overweight in children. In the UK, we've got many different public health strategies that are being implemented. So sugar reduction schemes, calorie reduction programs, and also things to help move children towards healthier diets, like campaigns for 100-calorie kids snacks and things like that. And here are some examples from the dietary guidelines from this region. So very common themes, particularly around sugar. And sugar has become the nutrient, it's not necessarily a nutrient, but of the ingredient of most concern for many. So we ask consumers across Europe, what are the most important factors when looking for healthy foods? This is data from 2018 quarter 3. And you can see low sugar, which is the deep purple column on the left. Low sugar content has become as important or sometimes more important to consumers than fat. So a high percentage of French, German, Spanish consumers say that low sugar is the most important factor when looking for healthy foods, which is higher or just about equal to the percentage of consumers from those countries who seek a low fat content. And the food and drink industry has reacted with a range of food and drink launches that feature low, no reduced sugar type claims, which we track on GMPD. So the chart on screen shows a percentage of drink product launches that feature a low, no reduced sugar type claim by region and by date. And you can see that in all regions, low, no sugar type claims are increasing. So in Europe, 11% of drink launches featured a low, no sugar claim in the 12 months ending September 2018, up from 8-9% 4 and 5 years ago. And that's true as well for the Middle East and Africa. So in the 12 months ending September 2018, almost 1 in 10 drink launches featured a low, no reduced sugar claim, which is almost doubled from 5 years ago. So there are huge opportunities for sugar reduction solutions. And as ever, naturalness is very important. So consumers are trying to reduce the amount of sugar they consume, but equally they're trying to consume more natural and more clean label products. And we can see that sugars with an artificial sweetening solution, with an artificial or heavily refined image are often avoided by consumers. So high fructose corn syrup, 51% of US consumers say they avoid high fructose corn syrup. 55% of UK consumers are concerned about artificial sweeteners. And on the other hand, sweetening solutions that can be linked back to a plant source, like stevia, are often much more accepted and preferred by consumers. So 39% of Spanish consumers, for example, think stevia is healthy. However, as ever, consumers aren't necessarily aware of which sweeteners are natural and which aren't. So there's an opportunity to educate consumers on different sweeteners used in food and drink. And here are some examples of some sweeteners. that can be sourced from plants. So Coca-Cola, they've launched many variations of Coca-Cola with stevia. So some have been successful, some haven't. They launched a stevia product in the UK, which I believe has been delisted. This one's from New Zealand. And then Halo Top, they've been a very successful frozen dessert brand. They use erythritol and stevia in combination. And then we can see xylitol as well. This is a low-carb raspberry fruit jam, 66% fruit as well as a sweetener xylitol. So some examples of how sweeteners with a natural image are being used in the food industry. And also over to confectionery. So the confectionery industry is under huge pressure to reduce sugar, which is obviously challenging in these categories. And here's an example of what Nestle are doing. So Rowntree's Randoms is quite an iconic brand in the UK. And they've launched a 30% less sugar version alongside their original variation. And they promote that it contains no artificial sweeteners. And they're using dextrin to help to deliver that sugar reduction. So fibres, whether they're natural or not, often likely to have a more natural image than artificial sweeteners. And consumers' preference for nutrients from normal food and drink could challenge fortification. So we often get asked, are consumers accepting, do they like and seek fortified food and drinks? So consumers, certainly in Europe, overwhelmingly prefer to take nutrients from normal food and drink. So you can see around 50-60% of consumers say that normal food and drink is a preferred way to get nutrients into their diet. That compares with, say, just 9% of French consumers who say they prefer to take nutrients from functional food and drink, and 17% of French consumers who say they prefer to get nutrients from vitamins and supplements. However, fortification is very much sought after in some situations. So bottled water, for example, 32% of German consumers agree that vitamins are appealing in bottled water. In the US, 42% of consumers say that eating foods with added fibre is just as good as eating foods that are naturally high in fibre. And then 60% of French consumers would like to see more biscuits with added health benefits. So consumers often say they prefer to take nutrients from natural food and drink, but fortification is definitely interesting to consumers in some categories and for some nutrients. One thing fortification is useful for is providing a safety net for nutrients that are at risk. So vitamin D, not relevant in all countries, but certainly in the UK, we're advised to supplement during the winter months because we don't get enough vitamin D from the sun. And then folic acid, that's also another nutrient where research has suggested that there could be deficiencies. So using fortification as a safety net for at-risk nutrients is another area where fortified foods are likely to be very attractive to consumers. And natural nutrition. So just as consumers don't like added ingredients, some consumers, they do prefer to take nutrients from natural food and drink sources. And brands often promote natural source of nutrient claims. So we can see the centre product, it's a kids yogurt. They promote that it's a natural source of protein, calcium and vitamin B12. So it's also about offering consumers information that they need regarding nutrition and health claims. And final slide, so 3 key points. So offer consumers choice. So consumers often make up their own definitions of clean label. It's quite impossible to say that clean label is just this one thing because different consumers seek different things that are important to them. So offering a lot of choice in terms of ingredients on the spectrum of artificial through to natural is a good idea. Using ingredients that have a stronger natural image as possible and delivering a short and simple, recognizable and familiar ingredients list as possible should also resonate very well with consumers. And on the nutrition front, so on the topic of fortification, so promoting natural source of claims is a good idea, but fortification does appeal to consumers who seek it as a safety net for nutrients where deficiencies may be a risk. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I'll hand over. Thank you. Oh, I'll put this back up there. Thanks.
We don't have time for questions, but I can only say that this was such a clean presentation. It certainly brought out what clean label means for our industry. And one of the things I liked about it was the inspiring examples from things that have already happened all over the world that we can start adopting. I can personally vouch for the sugar reduction. I'll tell you why, because I was responsible for reducing sugar by 25% across the breakfast cereals portfolio for Nestle in this region. And it wasn't an easy task. But in the end, that became a competitive advantage for the portfolio. Same thing with whole grain, replacing the entire portfolio with whole grain. How many of us have actually seen the growth of the organic aisle? I just wanted to bring this topic up. 5 years ago, did we have an organic aisle in our supermarkets? Raise of hands, anybody saw a organic aisle in the supermarkets 5 years ago? You did? Okay. But you see the size today. Organic is just one of the big trends, and there are many more to come in this region. And imagine the impact it will have on the F&B manufacturing and processing industry. It is massive. We can't discount it. And it is here. All right. With that, I would like to actually take things to the lunch session. But before that, I wanted to say a couple of things to you. We are going to come back after lunch to talk about food safety and quality. And we have with us Mr. Shabiq Thail, who is the Director, Quality Assurance and Food Safety from Akhtia, one of the leaders in this industry. And this final session is on the future of food and to what extent can we create it in the GCC, which will be led by Sky Kurtz, the Chief Executive Officer of Pure Harvest and Smart Farms Company.